And we're back on The Forest at Night. Normally I say you just heard and then introduced the band that you just heard as we brought them on for an interview. But today we have something completely different. From the magical land of what I actually do for a living outside of radio, please welcome cartoonist and illustrator Dan. Please pronounce your name one more time. I am going to butcher.
Membiela.
Dan Membiela of
Nailed
the
it.
Good Agent and Under God, which is now funding on Zoop. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Sarah, for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I've never been on TV before. I'm so excited to be
You
here.
are about to be very disappointed.
Sarah, before we get started, I want to thank you for making this space and for making space for me on your creation, your show. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it very, very much.
We take care of each other around here.
You sure do.
So let's start by talking about Good Agent.
Yes.
You sent over a few copies of issues 1 through 6 of your series, Good Agent. I've read through them all. And
Awesome.
do you want to give the audience a real quick summary of what Good Agent is about and who the Good Agent is?
Yeah, so Good Agent is a street-level superhero who fights social issues that are reskinned in the comic book as things like a sorceress, white supremacist cult leader, and a werewolf, and another vigilante. So it's every issue deals with a social issue, but reskinned in a street-level superhero story.
So the majority of the story of Good Agent, for those of you unfamiliar, and I highly recommend that you go pick up the series, stems around a gentleman who works functionally as a handyman in his apartment complex, who is going out and fighting the followers and adherents of the White Mother, which is I describe it as a even cross between the Night Mother from Skyrim and basically white supremacist Jesus.
That's pretty accurate. Yep. And she's been given a long life by the Aryan gods that she's pledged to, and we even get to see Odin or Wotan rather, as they say in fourth issue, and he's something to look at. He's pretty monstrous. So it's kind of twisting that purity and superiority of white supremacists, and it's Wotan is pure, all right. He's purely monstrous.
So in the comic, you do not shy away whatso-fucking-ever, and I do love that. You do not shy away whatso-fucking-ever from hiding behind imagery. There's that old meme of, I know authors who use subtext and they're all cowards. You are not being a coward in this.
Thank you.
Like, in issue 3, like, you literally see the Good Agent, who is running across these fucking rooftops, being chased by literal white supremacists with odal runes on their arms and tiki torches.
Yeah.
You had mentioned before we started that the majority of the concepts behind the comic itself were directly inspired by watching the 2016 election cycle and by watching, America point blank descending into white supremacy.
Yep.
My question is, was there a specific, reason why you were just like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just not even gonna fucking bother hiding any of this. Because, again, it's completely fucking badass as far as I'm concerned, but it is very fucking direct. There's no subtext, there's no symbolism. Was there any particular reason for that choice?
Yeah, so initially, I actually wrote some some indie comics in the '90s, and they were not. It's not work that I'm proud of. I mean, imagine indie comics in the '90s. It's like bad girl stuff. So in 2016 there was the DC Writers Workshop that I was very excited to. I thought, let's try this. I'm gonna submit my stuff. I of course did not get into that, and then I thought, I enjoyed this idea so much. I'm gonna just make my comic. And there's so many new ways of making your comic versus um, in the past. So I thought I'm gonna make a comic. So I started collecting all the recipes of I wanted, and I thought like, oh, it's gonna be like the bad guys are gonna be this collection of gangs, the Warriors style, and they'll all be very diverse, and it's gonna be this real popping and cool. So this was 2016. So as 2016 progressed, I immediately saw like, oh, absolutely not are the bad guys going to be this diverse group. The bad guys are going to be this homogenous white supremacist group led by this one white supremacist leader. Not only the U.S., across the globe, nationalism is way up, taking this uptick, and I mean that's horrifying. So, and there's also all these concepts of, I'm only joking, and memes that use white supremacist iconography as a joke, and we all get it. It's a joke. That person's not a white supremacist. But also, hey, come over here and look at this other website. You like that? And here's maybe a little more white supremacist. And you like that? Here, come further down the rabbit hole. So that's why I thought there's no hiding these. I'm not gonna like allude to things, or maybe she's racist, or any of that. It has to be right on the nose, between the eyes. This is bad. This is good. You don't, no fooling around with that. So, yeah, originally it was going to be just a fun. They'll be bad guys, but they'd be, comic book bad guys. But then seeing the world around me, I thought, absolutely not. They have to be reskinned versions of all the bad that I'm seeing around me. So that's why I wanted to make it more pointed rather than hinting at things.
Definitely. We had talked a bit before the show started about how I had kind of drawn the connection while reading this to Power Comics, it once derogatorily applied moniker that is, since become borderline its own fucking art movement, with modern artists like what the hell, what was his name? He drew One Man War on Terror. Ben Mara. With artists like Ben Mara and others kind of taking this style of comics that were very prevalent in the 80s and 90s underground scene, of just single-person auteurs who were inspired directly by superhero comics and that kind of very black and white logic and very black and white view on the world, and the very fucking black and red and bloodshed-filled aesthetics of comics that were, being published around the same time, but doing it from a one-man auteur kind of angle with occasionally varying results. You had occasionally more amateurish work, and then occasionally you had people you could read these, you read these fucking comics and you're like, there's a level of genius here. How the fuck are they pumping this out? Mm-hmm. But the main reason I drew the comparison is because the approach to the aesthetic of both a superhero universe and just stylistically the approach to designing these characters are very similar, and the aesthetic is also very similar as well. But I do want to focus on one specific aspect of that comparison, and that's the fact that, as you had mentioned, you just decided to drop any type of, co-author or illustrator or anything like that. You just decided to start making your own.
Yeah.
Were you an artist before deciding to do this, or were you a writer?
Well, I always felt the dream was always to be both. Sending out submission packets back in
Doing
the
it fucking properly, yeah. Hell
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that was always the dream. But then I was able to get some, like I said, a few writing gigs in the '90s, and I just always felt that my art is not it's not sufficient. It's not adequate for telling the story. And in 2016, I got over myself and I just said no, I'm gonna do it. And of course that often repeated advice of the best way to do something is to just do it, just pick up the tools and do it is absolutely correct. That is the best way to do it. Um, when I see the art in my latest issue of Good Agent, and even the art in Under God, which I think is my nicest looking stuff to date, and I see what Good Agent One looked like. Oh my gosh, I can't. There's no way I could make it look like it did in Good Agent One. I mean, I was really trying. I was at outputting my maximum then, but I mean, it's so much. I think the book looks so much nicer now where it is, and I think Under God, which is my new project, just looks even better. So, yeah, doing it is the way to go, and also it really boils down to that need to get it done. If you're able to just do it, I understand that that's not always the case, and I don't mean this to sound like an egotistical thing or anything, but you know, if you want something done, you just have to go do it, and that meant for me that I had to figure out how I was going to letter this thing. I had to figure out how I was going to do all the digital after effects. I was going to have to figure out how to do all that, and you just do it. And
Yeah.
now I've got 7 issues of Good Agent done. I've got Under God coming out. I've done a few other little things. So you just have to just
Yeah.
fucking do it. And if you didn't fucking do it, then you just go back to the loop and fucking do it.
I wouldn't even say that's egotistical, because I mean, again, this is primarily an underground music show. Um, I've made a point to bring on other artists and writers and cartoonists and other people from other mediums because, quite frankly, fuck you. This is my show. You're stuck here for 2 hours. You're listening to the people I think are fucking cool, and you can sit here and. I love my audience. They put up with my bullshit. But no, it's, this is very much, I have these interviews to explore concepts of art and underground scenes that don't usually get coverage because I find them fascinating. And as an underground cartoonist myself, fuck yeah. Like, you DIY or die is
Yeah.
it's been a fucking mantra from day one for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
when I saw your call for they had spaces on the show, I was like, oh, I gotta get on. Sarah, how do I get on?
Fucking and if you're in the audience, by the way, and you're listening to this and you're wondering how the hell do I get on Sarah's bullshit, DM either this show, which is at TFAN_radio, DM me directly at Sarah Allen Reed, or email us at theflorestsitradioshow@gmail.com, and we will hook you the fuck up. But speaking of DIY aesthetic, I do want to, dive into music a little bit here, because while this is very much not a comic that has like overt musical references or anything like that. You did mention having worked in the '90s, a comic scene explicitly that was basically inseparable from grunge and from punk and from all of the other genres of music that were going on at the time. Comics was, music was art, was video, was everything. You had artists like Raymond Pettibon doing cover art for like Black Flag and Sonic Youth. You had Dan Close repeatedly doing fucking work for a bunch of different bands. So you came up in an era where these were inseparable, and I'm curious, what do you normally listen to when working on your comics? And does what you're listening to, like, do you find little bits of like, Pearl Jam lyrics working your way into like certain story beats, or do you find, little tiny fucking bits of like, rhythm or whatever from what you're listening. Like, what do you listen to, or what do you consume while drawing, while at the drawing board, while at the writing board, and does that feed into your work at all?
So, uh, I wouldn't say that lyrics necessarily feed into the work. I do have to listen to I listen to music that I'm very familiar with, and the same if I throw on something that has video, it has to be something that I'm very familiar with, or else it just causes like a work stoppage, and then I'm just watching a thing or listening to the new lyrics or new music rather than working on what I was supposed to be working on.
Honestly,
So
fucking relatable, yeah.
yeah. So as far as I mean I don't know if I put out these I did 2 little videos to promote Under God, and I have from Holtz the Planets. Saturn is the music, so I love Holtz the Planets. So that's just that classical piece, and I love it because it sounds so much like an alternate universe superhero movie soundtrack, like from beginning to end. It's excellent, but like I'll just listen to old comforting music. I mean, so now, Sarah, your knowledge of music, now you're gonna hear like a kindergartner explain to you something. I'm already cringing at what a basic bitch I'm gonna sound like to you. But
No, you good.
so like, I always loved the Police. So I'll throw like
Fuck yeah.
the Police albums on. I'll throw on. I sent you that one from that ska cubano, the Cuban ska album song. I'll throw that on. I'll throw on just old comforting music, like The Cure's "Head on the Door," like REM "Murmur." It's just gotta be that stuff that's like in my heart and that I don't have to think about. It's just the music I know. I love listening to soundtracks. Gosh, like Superman the movie soundtrack, I adore. I listen to that while I'm working on stuff all the time. I mean, let's get really. I'm sorry for all the unfollowers and unsubscribers you're gonna get during this interview.
You're
But like,
honestly, if anyone's fucking unsubscribing because you listen to fucking REM, I should point out that like I have a jukebox in my I have a fucking like boombox in my studio, and I have a copy of REM's Out of Time, and I repeatedly put that shit on. So
nice, excellent. Yeah, so like, like I love throwing on like the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack, the Star Trek 2, the Wrath of Khan soundtrack. So it's less about
it's comfort food, so you can kind of focus. Yeah,
it's where the music lives for me, which is all like in my heart. So that's the kind of music I have to listen to. Like there's a relatively newish band for for an old guy like me called the Regrets, I think they're called, and they're very fun. But when I was first hearing the album, I was like, I can't hear this while I'm working on my comic because I'm just listening to them and not working on my comic. Like, I think Hey Now is the album by the Regrets that I know.
If you're gonna look that up, by the way, at home, it is the Regrettetes.
Yes, which is also very. I love what that tickles my brain. It's like the female group of the Regrets. Like,
I do thoroughly enjoy when especially femme-fronted bands do that. I think my favorite instance of that is there's a surf rock band called the Suffragettes. It's the Suffragettes, but it's the Suffragettes. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and isn't there also similar? Oh gosh. I'm so stupid. I remember the pun of the title of the band and
You are
this
not
artist,
stupid.
not the artist. What is? I apologize. It's her name and the Reclines, and it's a play off of Patsy Cline. It's It's the artist. I'll look that up. Don't worry. It's just me.
Katie Lang and the Recline?
Yes, there you go. Katie Lang and the Reclines. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I always thought that was clever.
No, it's fucking also just Katie Lang in general is
yeah, kick ass.
So you would mention that you'll occasionally listen to like Cuban American music. You are a first generation Cuban American.
True.
Originally from Miami, Florida. Somehow ended up in Michigan, which why the fuck? I don't blame you for leaving.
Me.
I don't blame you for leaving Florida, but like I feel like there are better places you could have ended up. But the reason I bring this up is your work does have undertones of, Latin American culture. Like, for instance, the White Mother, the original iconography in which she appears, is very similarly patterned to a Latin American deity.
La Santa Muerte.
Yep. Thank you for putting the name out there, because I was not going to pronounce that correctly. I am.
That is exactly what White Mother looks like. The White Mother looks very much like La Santa Muerte. Yep.
I try, like, I can actually read and write French, but I tried saying a phrase in French, I think, a few episodes back, and I just butchered it, so I'm not even going to try anymore. I can barely fucking speak English, so...
yeah, I consider that 100% if I'm speaking English properly. Which I'm usually not. You have that Romance language foundation, though, if you can read French.
I fucking barely. Like, I will say that the reason I know French is half because, again, I've spent most of my career as an underground cartoonist, and I realized very quickly that if I wanted to make any money, I need to make sure that my work is translatable into French, because the French actually read underground comics, whereas the Americans, we do fucking not. And second, because a couple of my found family sisters, because I don't actually have a family, as I've mentioned before, I am very much an orphan. But I have people I've picked up along the way, and people who have picked me up, and people I consider sisters as a direct result. And two of them are actually French. But the one who I spent the most time around, drunker than I am. So my accent's already fucked up enough from being from the backwoods of Missouri, but my French accent is worse, because it's filtered through a fucking, like, French-come-American who spends most of her time getting more fucked up than I do. So all the French I've heard her say is not entirely, like, pronounced, entirely correctly. So, and aside from that, it just all comes from me having to teach myself. So I
understand the words you're saying, but all I'm hearing is that French must sound like such a awesome fusion. Like,
it's French filtered through the, like, it's not even like...
I can't wait to hear, where do I hear this?
You don't, because I don't, no. But no, it's French. It's not even like Creole French, where like it's a tolerable fucking southern. No, I'm from the fucking Ozarks. It is like Gasconade County fucking trailer trash bullshit. That's me speaking any language, much less French. But anyways, so
that's like etouffee from a different bayou. That's got to be good. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Shit. No. I am not embarrassing myself any more than I normally do. There's a limit.
I'm not trying to lure you into that. I'm being sincere.
But what the reason I bring it up is there's those like short allusions, but a lot of the references that I see in The Good Agent specifically, and I imagine eventually in Under God, come from pop culture. As I kind of mentioned, the character of the White Mother and how she is later portrayed is very, very reminiscent of the Dark Brotherhood from the Elder Scrolls universe. You have the character of the Good Agent, who is very frequently portrayed like one of many masked characters from like 90s era comics. Where do the majority of your visual influences lie? Do you pull from the culture and history that you're from, or are you more likely to pull from like pop culture?
Well, I think that's an excellent question, and I actually not too long ago went through some of my old comp copies of these 90s things, and there was in a lot of them there were like horror elements, which is very funny because I am so not a horror person, but I was trying to bring in like, okay, let's bring in these horror concepts, and you know, being the scared little Catholic boy that I am, boy, does religion keep popping up like in in scary when I try to make something like, all right, let's talk about, let's make this uh,
And you go
imposing or
immediately to the
frightening. Oh,
scariest thing you
here,
can think of,
here
and
I
like
am in
Catholic school, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So so yeah, that's very funny that you're right. That does pop up, and White Mother does have a she does have that kind of like Catholic iconography. I mean, essentially like Santa Muerte has. So that definitely resonated um, with me. There's in Good Agent, you see that there's kind of like makeshift street altars that are made to the White Mother, and we see one like in one of the chop shop in the first issue, a little kind of altar. So we see like people essentially bending knee and almost as if praying to White Mother at other points. So yeah, there's a lot of that definitely comes from my upbringing in a Cuban and Catholic household. So the it's just interesting. I was the comic that I was looking at was, I had a story where it's a zombie essentially is part of the story, and I I was pulling up like transubstantiation. I was like, boy, this guy can't get away from his his Catholicism classes. So it's just it's interesting that it's you can't hide what's inside. All those Lego bricks are in there, and you just put them together in different ways, but it's the same Lego bricks you were given early
When you
on.
were a kid, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I was raised in the LCMS Lutheran Church, which for those of you unfamiliar, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod is basically it's Catholicism but without the fun. Like we don't drink. We
What
don't
a
have.
Yelp review! What a Yelp review! Oh my
It's
God.
awful. Like it's none of the fun and twice as many beatings. That's what I was fucking raised in. Like
Holy shit.
we don't even have like bingo or nothing. No, we suck, dude. But it's funny that you mentioned that like you're not a big fan of horror because neither am I. I joked that I got into writing horror when I was doing Tabula Rosetta, and now I'm doing a bunch of contract work for books that are eventually coming out about like spy novels. I've got a book that should be out next year, like quarter 4. That's very. It's basically fucking Over the Garden Wall, but like weird horror filtered through it with
Awesome.
gory. A bunch of contract work, but when I do my own shit, I tend to write horror. And I often joke that I got into psychological horror because I wrote comedy, and then I got too depressed to write comedy. But when a lot of my books
Well, and
are
comedy
filled,
and horror are right there with a barely visible membrane between them. They're the same territory essentially.
the difference between, actually, to quote the late Trevor Moore, comedy is tragedy to remember.
Yeah.
It's basically the same fucking genre. The only
Yeah.
the only real difference is whether the person on stage is laughing or crying, um, and how uncomfortable the audience is while they're doing that. But it's interesting that you mentioned that religion actually feeds into how you write these elements, because when I was doing Tabula Rosetta, it was much of the same. Um, and there are definitely a lot of, themes in your work that, call back to that. There's constant imagery of churches, like in issue 2. There's quite a bit of, obviously, like, as you mentioned, Wutan Odin makes an appearance in the comic. You have the imagery of the Night Mother. Your latest piece is titled Under God. So it's interesting that you do bring that up, and that leads me to a great segue, because we haven't talked about it yet. Let's talk about Under God.
Let's talk about Under God on a
What
very special
is-
episode of
What is...
The Forest at Night.
What a very special episode of the... It's like fucking, we got like soap opera music playing in the background. God. So what is Under God?
All right, so what is Under God? Under God. Under God is what happens when your beliefs and your values are in conflict. Under God is a story that takes place in a slightly future world where the dials have been just turned a little bit from the world that we recognize and has made an enormous impact. Under God is about the weaponization of religion. Under God is about the end goal of some nationalist and conservative talking points, and taking them. I tweeted many times, can reality keep its shit together long enough for my fictional comic to come out? Because talking points of people are exactly identical to things that are in Under God. So like, let's keep it in your pants till my graphic novel comes out, and then I guess burn the world down. But and something that shows up in Good Agent a lot, which I hope comes through, that is also in Under God, is the value of incremental good. That no amount of good done is inconsequential. It is always worth doing that good, even in the face of an enormous corporation that is blind to you. You should still be doing the good work.
And we're back on The Forest at Night. And you may have noticed, like we did 2 weeks ago, normally when introducing these interviews, I play a track that was by the artist we're about to talk about. We are not doing that. We're talking to a cartoonist and author again. And you may know our good man, because he was here 2 weeks ago. Dan, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very, very much, Sarah, for having me back for part 2 of our talk. And thank you very much for making space for me on your show. I appreciate you being here and making the space, and for having me on. So thank you very, very much.
No worries. We take care of each other around here.
You sure do.
So if you're wondering, ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary folks, and everyone else, regardless of identification or orientation at home, why Dan is back so this early, number one, he's fun to talk to and a good guy. And number two, the recording software that I used fucked up, and I didn't catch it until I was already editing the interview. So it cut off right as we started to talk about your upcoming book, Under God. Part 1 will be uploaded as well. I'll either put it as, in the same video or a separate video, but, numbered Part 1 and Part 2 up on YouTube when this goes in the archives. But first interview, we talked about your previous series. If you'd like to go ahead and touch base and tell the viewers what that is, the listeners, viewers, whatever, YouTube, radio, however you're listening to this, if you'd like to tell the fine folk.
Yeah, like I said last time, I've never been on TV before, so I'm very excited to be on this show. So my previous book is Good Agent, which is available on the application that was formerly known as Comixology, so Amazon Kindle. That's essentially a street-level superhero that is fighting all kinds of social issues that are reskinned as a werewolf, a white supremacist sorceress cult leader, another vigilante, police. So that one's less of a reskinning and more of a direct direct approach. But my upcoming book, which goes live on Zoop.gg, the crowdfunding site, is Under God.
Which
And
is what we're talking about today.
yep. And Under God is about what happens when your beliefs and your values are in conflict. Under God is about the weaponization of religion. Under God is about the end goals of some conservative talking points, and I've said before, seemingly absurd, but with very recent news, not. I mean, I just want reality to keep it together long enough for my fictional social science fiction work to at least have the slightest air of fiction to it, and not just be a quaint, dumbed down retelling of what the real world is like. And something that appears in Good Agent a lot is also in Under God, which is a concept that there is no amount of good that is inconsequential. That in the face of even seemingly insurmountable position,
Right.
good is worthwhile. Good is the correct choice. Good has value. So
Right.
this is concept of incremental good. So in other words, you want to be the butterfly wings that create the storm on the other side of the world. So it's the smallest thing can do that.
Definitely. So, real quick, because you are still crowdfunding this, as the show is airing, you I think will be in the second week of your campaign on Zoop.gg. That is ZOOP.gg. And the reason
Game.
huh?
like good game in GG.
Zoop, good game. It wasn't just, you're playing Counter Strike. You shoot somebody in the head, and you just scream Zoop, and then you just put good
Zoop.
game, and you're done.
There you go.
I expect to see that as an insult in every single one of you's, chat when you guys are playing the new Overwatch for all of 5 seconds, because that's about how long I'm assuming most people tolerate the new Overwatch. I expect to see that insult thrown around.
Zoop.
My sincerest apologies.
Gotta report this. This person said Zoop to me. I gotta report them.
My sincerest apologies to Jordan, who runs Zoop. Fantastic platform. Real fun word to say. Please scream it at random people and passersby on the subway. But you had sent over, because you did send over quite a bit of The Good Agent, and we discussed that last time. For Under God, you sent over some panels which aren't lettered yet, I assume to keep the story itself a mystery. But there is one interesting thing that I do want to talk about, and that actually relates to your campaign. On one of the pages, there is a comment that states something to the effect of, note, this is not the final page, because a random backer, or not a random backer, a reward is on the campaign that allows one backer to get themselves drawn into the comic.
Correct. So there's going to be an add-on for that specific page where one unlucky citizen on the wrong side of the great big beautiful walls that protect Holy America is being harassed by some riot geared up officers, and so one lucky backer will be able to claim that reward, and then be in the three panels that make up that one page, and they will also receive that original page the 11 by 17 Bristol ink on Bristol page as part of the reward. So I think that's going to be a nice looking page. I think it's gonna look great in anyone's study or living room or bedroom, wherever they want an image of themselves being harassed by
Held at gunpoint with like
held at,
loaded
held at
AK-47s.
gunpoint. I think they're the second panel. They're forced to kneel.
Kneeling.
So
I do thoroughly enjoy how the first and second panel you made a point to pencil out the full word "you," and then the third panel just has like a riot police member just pointing a loaded AK-47 directly at the dude's face, and it just has "you" on the pencils, just right on the head, just the letter "U." So I am curious as a cartoonist, because I've seen this reward cropping up quite a bit in Kickstarters and Zoom campaigns and other types of crowdfunding. And for how I work in pages, and for how I draw my comics, whether I'm the writer or whether I'm just the illustrator, I've never thought to do that, and I can't. Maybe it's outside my purview, but how are you going about that? I'm assuming you added it on because it's like as I mentioned, it's a pretty popular campaign add-on for a lot of comics crowdfunded comics projects. What made you decide to add that in?
yeah. So
How
I'm sorry, go ahead.
does that work on a technical level?
So yeah, it is an add-on or level that gets added to a lot of crowdfunding, and I see it not trying to be messy here or pejorative of anyone else who's done it, because I'm sure it's been done in so many amazing ways.
This is
But
the Forest at Night. We encourage starting shit.
being messy, it seems to be sometimes like get drawn into the next book, or get drawn into a background, and then you see your drawn likeness in the background, all of which are good levels. But I thought if the excitement is to be part of the artwork, first thing I thought was, why we got to get them the artwork. Like it's one thing to be part of the material where you're seeing like, cool, I'm in the artwork. Well, this person will see that. They will also have the actual artwork. They will have the physical, not 100% fungible piece of artwork. It will belong only to them.
You can funge it. You don't care.
Completely fungible.
No apes or trees were harmed in the making of this comic book, although boy howdy, we sure do wish we could harm some apes during it.
The NFT kind of ape.
Yes. Animal cruelty bad. Openly mocking and beating the shit out of and mugging crypto bros for their Teslas outside of the dive bar. Completely valid.
Excellent.
Completely
and
valid. I can't. The only thing I can't encourage about that is stealing the Tesla, because there are so many better cars to steal that don't randomly blow up.
And then not be extinguishable because of the type of battery that they use. They just keep catching back on fire.
Sincerely look forward to getting banned from Twitter. I'm putting this exact excerpt up. Fuck you, Daddy Musk. Suck my nuts.
So I wanted the actual artwork to get into the hands of the person, and I wanted it to be prominent. So this person will not be drawn into one background. They won't be drawn into two backgrounds. They will be the central figure in 3 panels of that one page. So
a very heroic figure as well.
Yeah. So I wanted to really take the concept and say, if this is a concept people like, then I really hope this is a concept one person will really love. So, I think it's a nice looking page. It's actiony. It's got that focal point. All three panels point right to the person. It's not going to be like a Where's Waldo of where did I end up in this book. It will be very clear where you ended up in the book.
I should
Um,
say that when I say like a very heroic pose as well, again, like you're getting drawn being held at gunpoint.
yes.
I was wondering, is there some kind of like just fuck you to that, or is it kind of a punk thing, or was that just kind of how the panel and how the story developed, and that was the only place you could, you had a character that wouldn't be a recurring character on the focal point. Like from a writer's perspective, how did you work that in?
Well, that story beat was just always in the script, and then I had I have a buddy who kept asking to be in my previous work, Good Agent. He kept saying, "Is this the issue where Good Agent beats me up?" And I was like, "No, no, you're not in it. Like you don't want to be one of the people in it." He was like, "Oh, just please put me in it and have Good Agent beat me up." So, at one point, Good Agent throws a guy out a stadium window, and it's my buddy who he throws out.
I've already used the daddy joke once, but
so
please put me in the comic. You throw him out the window. Some underlying themes.
So then I also saw that people were saying like someone said, which I mean, this is their valid take. It's valid to them, but they were like, if you could be killed in the comic, it was some other crowdfunding thing. It's like, oh, that's severe. So then when I saw that in the story beat, I was like, oh, this clearly. My buddy wanting to get beat up, and then the other creator thinking that the best thing to be in a comic is killed. I was like, this guy, this character here is the one. That's the money shot there to sell to someone. So
the kicker to that is you could probably like scan in. Just occurred to me, scan in and ink like just the U before you actually finalize the page with whoever backs it. And just put it on Twitter like read Dan's comics, or this could happen to you. Just a very direct graphic narrative push.
you. Yeah. So hopefully that I'm hoping that resonates with multiple people, but there's only one available because I do want to give the actual original piece of artwork to it, and it doesn't, you looking at it, you see it couldn't switch people in between. It's that one person is really getting worked over by the soldiers, by the cops there. So
Definitely. So moving a bit on from that, but keeping on the questions about the writing process and the process of creating the comic itself. We had talked last time before my recording software fucked up and kicked you off the show, and I do apologize. Thank you again for coming on for such short notice.
Sarah, thank you so much for having me on. I can't believe that you would thank me. Thank you so much for.
I literally messaged you the day the original broadcast was airing, and I was like, "Hey Dan, I fucked up." You came on the same week. Like that's some short notice. So no, I do appreciate you. But we had briefly touched on the concept of losing one's religion in the story. But I do want to touch on another story beat, another theme in the book, that of the good agent himself, which bears a striking resemblance of all things, of all characters, to the Question. Steve Ditko's infamous character that eventually, when Steve Ditko actually started self-publishing his own work, turned into the infamous Mr. A. A very dogmatic character who is as Randian as one could get and as black and white as Steve Ditko could possibly get. And I'm curious as to why you chose specifically a question mark mask reminiscent of the Question in a story about losing one's religion. Was there some kind of commentary on there, or should we take the question mark at face value and not draw that into it?
There is a very good reason for the question mark. In on the sermon, we're gonna get biblical here. Uh,
Oh
during
yeah.
during the Sermon on the Mount, where the Beatitudes happen, Christ says that when you give to the needy, your left hand should not know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving is in secret, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. So, the concept is that as these new Americans who are inside the wall, they've built these big, beautiful apartheid walls to keep out every state and persons who do not agree with them uh, outside the wall. They, of course, value charity because they are God-fearing people. So charity is a big deal to them. So they have on Almsgiving Day, they have a day of charity. They have this big ceremony where they take a little caravan out to the other side of the wall and give to those who have less than them, then return. And part of that ceremony is the privileged few who get to take part in that wear uh, these masks so that they become alms agents. And then so that then no one on the other side knows, or even within amongst themselves, no one knows who's giving the charity. So it's in keeping with that verse from the Sermon on the Mount that your left hand does not know what your right hand is doing. But when they do go to the other side of the walls, things quickly go wrong. starting with that, starting with that page that a person can be drawn into, and one of the alms agents doesn't make it back. And now she's trapped on the wrong side of the wall with the people that she's been taught her whole life want to harm her society. She's the very, very best that her society can create, and she's been given those beliefs, and she's been given a set of values. And on that unbeliever side of the wall, she starts seeing things that don't match up with what her beliefs, with the beliefs she was taught, and her values come in conflict with what she sees, and she has to, because it's a comic book, those two they have to be reconciled. Whereas in the real world, people just walk around with beliefs and their values in complete contradiction, and they're fine, and they run society. In fact, so not so in the comic book world. One has to make a decision in the comic book world, and she's forced to make a decision.
Well, that's the thing. And kind of I do have a lead in for this. Comics, like any literary medium or any real story, any storytelling medium, whether it be comics, literature, music to a certain degree, even narrative painting, there are definitely those rules. Yes. But as we saw in like the 90s and 2000s with comics published by places like Vertigo and whatnot, you don't necessarily have to follow that conventional wisdom. Is there a because I'm imagining that you intentionally picked comics because you wanted to follow that. You did want to make a point to make sure that they actually try to reconcile that.
Mhm.
Um, and what I'm curious about is because assuming you did pick comics as a medium because you subconsciously wanted to have them reconcile that and you wanted to follow that, what would the story look any different if she didn't? Would the story have developed differently if that particular character just kind of did what a lot of us have to do and just went about our business with the contradictions? Would that have changed the story at all?
Yeah, yes, it would be a it would be a very different story. It would be a much shorter story. It would be wrapped up pretty much in the middle of the book, because she's given an opportunity to get what she first wanted when she's trapped on the wrong side of the wall, or what she's been taught is the wrong side of the wall. She's given an opportunity to get that, and that's when she has to make her choice, and she chooses to do something that then delays her ability to get back to her side of the wall. So if she if she didn't take her values to heart and just wanted to get what she wanted as quickly as possible, regardless of whatever she says her values are or how she wants to live her life, she would have gotten them much quicker, and the story would have wrapped up a little bit sooner and a little bit bloodier, and then that would have been it would have been a very different story. Yes.
Well, it's interesting because you have the biblical reference, you have the chosen medium of comics, which you are trying to follow to a T, from the very traditional. Oh, everything gets wrapped up, everything is resolved. The good guys and all. You have a lot of very what's the word I'm looking for here? You're telling the story with a lot of nuance and a lot of depth to it through a very simple lens. And what's interesting to me is that in a story about literally losing one's religion, that particular character, and I'm sure you can answer whether other characters follow the same path, end up trying to still find that simplicity, trying to still fucking reconcile everything as if it were, as one does with one, with religion, with a, going from these easier answers, which are all very neatly tied, to a more difficult answer, but still one that's neatly tied. Does that reflect anything on your own life at all? Is that something you've just noticed from other people who have worked through trying to, process what their path for religion has done for them? Or is it just kind of a storytelling mechanism?
Yeah, I mean, Under God definitely has to do with, I was brought up in a Catholic household. I consider myself Catholic, but I consider myself a progressive Catholic, and Under God definitely definitely is, like I believe I said in the first part, Good Agent was my therapy comic, or is my therapy comic for everything that was happening at the end of 2016. And Under God I can definitely see as, again, working through and processing, how do I consider myself Catholic, and also how do I see other Catholics who are so incredibly different from me and so, filled with hate and tolerant of so many things, and not willing to. All the basic values that are most fundamental parts of the religion, willing to just completely forget those, because basically, it's the golden calf. Like, the golden calf is offering so many great things. Let's just go with that. So it's definitely me processing that, and I actually wrote down. I wrote down. I'm trying to think of the timeline here, but there was in 2016, I received emails from our parish, and it was it wasn't even from the parish. It was like from a parishioner, and she sent me like some crazy email, essentially, making sure that I'm going to vote Republican, which of course I did not, and I never have since I first voted. And I actually wrote down.
Word response. Nope.
Yeah. It was like just delete. Don't. So I actually wrote down, just to let's double down on the biblical references here, Sarah. I actually wrote down in preparing for the 2020 election. I was like, this is what I'm hitting them with. I'm not just going to delete the email. This is what I'm hitting them with. And I wrote down the sentiment that in the temptations of Christ, one of the temptations was that Satan would just give him everything he wants, all the kingdoms of man, and he would be the ruler of all the kingdoms of man. Everyone would know Jesus. The whole world would know Jesus. He would be the king of the world, and that all he has to do to get that is to just bend his knee to Satan. Just one little, just bend your knee to me, and everything you want is yours, and you don't have to die. You don't have to die for everyone. We'll make it all happen. And of course, Jesus rejects that. Catholics sure didn't reject that. They were told, here, all you have to do to get the things you want is bend your knee to this horrific golden calf, and boy, they couldn't bend fast enough. They were on the floor,
Hell, half of them didn't even let
They haven't gotten up.
Finish the sentences. Yeah.
yeah.
Like bend your knee, and I will give you. Sure, man. I'm all down there. You want me to suck your dick too? I didn't even tell you what I'm giving. Nah, man. I just.
Sounds good. It sounds good.
It's really fun to fillet white supremacists, guys. Who needs anything from it? No, it's.
Luckily for everybody, a second email never came from this person, so that was good. But I had it there in my pocket. I was like, you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. Like let's. So yeah, under God definitely has to do has to do with me processing that. You're given these values, and then so what? I want this. I want this instead. I want these shiny things instead. But I'm still going to say I have those values. I want all these things, and also anyone who wants to take away those shiny things from me, like we gotta kill them immediately.
I just realized exactly how clippable my joke there was. So please do not throw. It's super fun to fillet white supremacist guys into a... Don't throw that into anything, you assholes. I know you have editing software. Don't
She said it a second time, even clearer.
It's like that old... Like, in all seriousness, it's like that old John Waters quote. If you go to their house and they are not 1,000% ready to defend... trans folk and marginalized folk against Nazis and beat the shit out of Nazis in general, don't fuck them. Show some love for your anti-fascist comrades. Don't bang Madison Cawthorn. He's weird.
Real weird.
So
I'm still not over seeing that video.
We all like it's because he talked about the cocaine. Like, we all knew they were having cocaine orgies. He was just dumb enough to say something, and now he's getting hit with it. No one's gone after Matt Getz yet. Why? Because Matt Getz doesn't talk about the cocaine orgies. It's that simple, guys. If you're gonna bend at the knee to serve Satan, at the very least, don't talk about it on C-SPAN.
Don't go around. You show everyone how your knees don't bend, but then you go back to bending.
Yeah. So as far as other rewards go, let's talk briefly about the campaign. If you are listening to this by the time it airs on our archives on YouTube, you probably have about a week left. Please go support the project. What other wonderful things can my listeners get if they go pick up a copy on Zoop, and will it be available after the fact?
So the campaign ends June 10th, so future listeners, that's your sense of urgency. Whatever date you're listening to now, the campaign ends June 10th. So
for the record, the interview should go live on YouTube on May 21st. So you have about 3 weeks, actually. So a decent amount of time.
If she doesn't have it up on the 21st, don't be a jerk.
Yeah, don't
Got
be
a
mean.
lot going on. She's doing so many things.
Don't take editing software to my horrible quips, you big meanie.
Don't be a jerk about it.
Don't be dumb.
The so I am a total unknown quantity, and I understand that. So I have kept all my goals very, very modest. What I want most is this piece of art that I have worked so hard on. I've been in the kitchen making this small batch artisanal graphic novel for you. I'm pointing at the camera.
It's 1,000% organic, made with real artificial material.
It really is, and with love, so much love.
At least 99% love.
And
At least. The 1% is for the guy who pays money to get himself drawn into a panel where he gets shot in the face.
there you go. There you go. But you won't
This
be
is a
shot in the
different
face.
type of love.
Spoiler, you won't be shot in the face. Your character will not be shot in the face.
That's for the next fundraiser.
That's the big money level. So I'm keeping everything modest. It's basically a PDF version at $5. So it's a 44-page graphic novel, $5. A print version for $8. A signed with head sketch, which I'm very excited, and I hope people respond to the head sketch level. It's going to be $12 for the first 48 hours, and then $15 after that, because the way I've designed the cover for Under God, it's going to have a predominantly all black cover, which is going to allow me to do negative with a white gel pen negative head sketches, which I'm very excited about doing that. I've posted on Twitter a few examples of what some of those are going to look like. So, and then after that, I just have a small Agent bundle. I think it's $4 of all the issues of Good Agent. And then I have some 11 by 17 commission add-ons. I think I have 5 of those available. So it's really just I'm not in the merch business. I'm not making a lot of extra little things about the book. It's basically just the book. The other thing is I have one stretch goal right now planned. If people are receptive to the project, I would be more than happy to develop more stretch goals. But the one stretch goal is that at 200% funded, the book has bonus material added to it. So it's going to be all the concept art from Under God. It's including an explanation of the whole question mark mask, which originally was a completely different concept. It was not part of Under God, and how that transformed into the Under God mask. The character design sketches, just all kinds of back matter on Under God, to bump up the book to 60 pages and then a square binding on the book. So I really would love it if we could get to that level. But if we can just get the book out there and have the art exist in the real physical world, that would be amazing as well.
Do you have any other big plans for the next? Are you doing another graphic novel about the Good Agent? Let me ask that first.
About Good Agent or Under God?
Good Agent.
Good Agent. So the last
Under God.
Under God.
Not Good Agent. Under God.
Under God. Under God is a self-contained story, and everything you need to know and have all the feelings about will all be under that cover. So having said that, like any good piece of fiction, that world, when you close that back cover, that world keeps spinning. That world doesn't come to an abrupt end. So, gosh golly, Sarah.
You gonna do another one? You gonna do more?
If people want more Under God, there's definitely more to do, because all the things that I mentioned about Under God, like there's that theocracy in place, and all the notes on religion. It's not a treatise on any of those things. The story itself is a very small, intimate story of just the main characters within that world. So yeah, there's a ton of space for other stories, but especially with how the story ends. There's a ton of space for more stories. But if
Oh yeah.
if it's just no, we enjoyed this and we're good, then that's it. It can end right there in a very fulfilling way. The message
So
gets across.
so I don't sound like a complete jackass. Do you have any plans to continue The Good Agent?
I don't know why you would sound like a jackass.
Because
in
I
any
got
way.
the names mixed up.
I get the names mixed up all the time. That's why I had to. I had
I'm
to
a
clarify.
radio professional.
Yeah. So the latest issue of Good Agent is part one of a 3-part story. So I will be getting back to wrapping up that 3-part story. So
Do you have any fun plans for rewards for those campaigns? Or are you doing a fundraising campaign for those?
Well, I that's an excellent question. I don't know. I guess this Under God is my very first crowdfunding project. So this is really my first fishing expedition, and then if it looks like it's a viable thing, then maybe I can collect the 3 parts of Good Agent as something, or just do them individual issues if that looks like something people would like. But Good Agent
The
right
Good
now just
Agent graphic novel win, Dan.
Good
Graphic
Agent.
novel win.
I mean, let's see. I have to. I think all creatives are always guilty of thinking of so many carts before horses and so many
I
other
plead the fifth.
projects. So I gotta see. I want to make sure that this one come back with a good catch from this fishing expedition, and because if I don't, then everything else is moot.
Hell yeah. Anything else you wanted to add before we get off of here?
Just that Under God is available for pre-order at zoop.gg /c/undergod, or just go to just type zoop.gg in your URL line in their browser, and then hit explore, and you'll see Under God there. And that it is a small batch artisanal graphic novel that I have made just for you. I've been working in the kitchen, and I really have been just putting my all into it, and I hope that you all enjoy
$5
it.
for a sandwich, it's not bad.
It's not bad at all. Not bad at all. Not with today's prices.
Get shittier deals at Subways.
And I also want to thank you again, Sarah, for having me on. I understand that there was technical difficulties, but you didn't have to have me on again. So I appreciate it very, very much.
Don't worry about it. Thanks again for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
All mine.
And we will see all of you fine folks next week on The Forest at Night.